A developing tropical low in the Coral Sea, heavy rain and flooding across Queensland, and a potential cyclone threat for Western Australia. Multiple systems across Northern Australia that need your attention. I've examined the latest from the Bureau of Meteorology, analysed the numerical models, and there is quite a bit to unpack here, particularly as we head into the weekend when tropical development becomes increasingly likely across multiple regions. Right now, remnants of what was Tropical Cyclone Koji are still wrapping themselves up across northwestern Queensland. The low pressure system is sitting right on the border between the Northern Territory and northwestern Queensland, tracking northwest. By the time you're re-watching this, it's likely already moved into the Northern Territory. The significant factor here is that this system is expected to survive the journey across land and make it through to the top end by this weekend, probably around the Darwin area. And when a tropical system survives like that, redevelopment becomes a real possibility. Now, there is some debate about classification. The Bureau might label this as an entirely new system, Tropical Low 16U. That LL happen if the current low unravels and gets absorbed back into the monsoon trough. Either way, the remnant energy from Koji will still be there. The classification doesn't change what matters, which is the forecast itself. What's more immediate, though, is the rainfall situation developing right now across central Queensland. We've got showers and thunderstorms erupting through parts of central and southwestern Queensland. There's a line of convergence still active through the Mackay region into the Whitsundays and Central Coast. Overnight, this delivered heavy rainfall to the Clark Ranges, which has made the flooding situation there even worse over the last couple of days. Here, where it gets concerning, we've got clashing airflows converging around the Hugh End and Charters Towers area. This pocket of central northern Queensland, just outside the Central Highlands and coalfields, more into the Gulf country southwest of Townsville down towards Longreach, is about to see an explosion of quite strong thunderstorms over the next few hours. When you get clashing airflows like this, you get rapid thunderstorm development. These aren't your garden variety afternoon storms. These are tropical downpours in all their glory as we enter peak wet season. The convective forecast modelling is showing intense rain accumulations later tonight. Some spots could see above 100 millimetres. In one or two locations, we could be looking at falls closer to 250 millimetres. That's a massive amount of rain in a short period. The good news, if you can call it that, is the worst of the rainfall should steer clear of northwestern Queensland. Those areas have been flood-ravaged lately. Central Queensland has already been flood-ravaged and is about to cop more. The rainfall is going to remain in this corridor, which means flood-ravaged locations are going to connect up. Flash flooding is definitely a concern, particularly tonight. If you are in these areas, you need to be aware of where your safe evacuation routes are. Don't attempt to drive through floodwater. If it's flooded, forget it. That is not just an SES slogan, it is the difference between getting home safely and becoming a rescue statistic. Floodwater is deceptively powerful. Just 15 centimetres of fast-flowing water can knock you off your feet. 60 centimetres will float most vehicles. Southwestern Queensland still has thunderstorms that continue for maybe another 48 hours before they whittle away. They're re-dropping patchy but very heavy rainfall in multiple locations, which is increasing flooding concerns in the Peru and Diamantina River catchments. Now, pushing the forecast forward through the weekend, that low pressure system tracking into the Northern Territory is expected to survive. Whether it is called the same system or gets redesignated as Tropical Low 16U, we're looking at an exceedingly wet weekend through the top end, particularly around Darwin. The monsoon trough is strengthening and connecting up with activity out in the Coral Sea, which is going to pump moisture down through the monsoon into the Arafura Sea and eventually into the Gulf of Carpentaria. This promotes heavy shower and thunderstorm activity through the Carpentaria coast. Cape York Peninsula stays a bit drier with that tropical flow across the Coral Sea, though you will still see some areas of convergence. When converging winds come out of the south and clash with winds from the west, you may see a couple of strong showers and thunderstorms developing through the Cassowary coast, particularly through Saturday and Sunday. But for the most part, the dry weather continues a bit longer for Cape York. Still a few showers and thunderstorms, but nothing major until early next week, when the monsoonal low-pressure system offshore in the Coral Sea really begins to take shape. Let's talk about the Coral Sea situation because there are multiple things happening out there that need attention. We've got Tropical Low 14U currently heading northeast. Development is expected to be slow over the next couple of days, but the system is expected to develop as it approaches Vanuatu. It's then forecast to make a U-turn back towards New Caledonia, Forecast models are now favouring this system becoming a tropical cyclone. Not a strong one, Category 1, maybe Category 2, possibly Category 3, just considering this system is expected to be quite large. You can already see it as pretty broad and messy right now. As it heads towards New Caledonia, development and intensification can be expected. It'll then cross over New Caledonia and be pushed back down towards Norfolk Island and New Zealand because of the jet stream. That jet stream acts like a barrier. A tropical cyclone that develops around New Caledonia can move closer to Australia than where that jet stream is positioned. So it can turn towards Australia, but it hits that atmospheric wall and gets deflected. For Norfolk Island, this is worth watching. The system is expected to arrive around the 21st to 23rd of January. At that point, it'll likely be transitioning into an extratropical system, but you'll still see strong winds and heavy rain. If you're on Norfolk Island, you'll want to keep an eye on this one. The more significant concern for Australia is what develops closer to home in the Coral Sea during the latter part of next week. We're re-looking at early next week, probably around the 22nd to 24th of January, when a monsoonal low is expected to develop. This system will form from that convergence between the monsoon trough and tropical moisture streaming across the Coral Sea. Now, here's where it gets interesting with model disagreement. Some models are suggesting this develops into a tropical cyclone. Others keep it as a rainfall depression. The position is also uncertain. If it develops in the Gulf of Carpentaria, we'll see limited rainfall across far North Queensland. If it develops out in the open Coral Sea, then we'll see maximal rainfall across far North Queensland. This is the zone of uncertainty over the next 10 days. What we can say with confidence is that a tropical low will develop. The impacts and exact location we don't know yet. But for far North Queensland, from Cairns north through to Cape York, you need to be monitoring this situation daily. Heavy rainfall is likely regardless of where exactly this system sets up. For context, you are already dealing with saturated ground from recent rainfall. Met Carbine reported 34 degrees at 10 a.m. with 85% humidity and a minimum of 28 overnight. That is uncomfortable sleeping weather, and it shows how much moisture is in the atmosphere right now. When this monsoonal low develops, that moisture gets organised. Organised tropical systems are efficient rainfall producers. Darwin S already copying it. Rain started at 6 a.m. and doesn't look like slowing down. That S, the monsoon, getting active. By this weekend, with the low pressure system moving through, Darwin and the top end are in for a very wet period. If you are in the top end, make sure your property is ready for heavy rain. Clear your gutters, check your downpipes, secure loose items. If you've got any low-lying areas on your property, now is the time to think about drainage. Now let this turn our attention to Western Australia because there's a developing cyclone threat there that could become quite significant. The remnants of Tropical Cyclone Koji, or whatever this system becomes, may make it out to the Indian Ocean. If it does, conditions are exceptionally favourable for rapid development. Sea surface temperatures are approaching 32 degrees close to the coastline, 31 degrees out in the open ocean. Wind shear is very minimal, between 5 to 10 knots, which is perfect for tropical cyclones, just enough to enhance outflow without tearing the system apart. Humidity is very high coming in from the deep tropics. If a system gets offshore into the Indian Ocean under these conditions, it's going to intensify. There's not much that could stop it apart from the system itself. This is a significant concern for the Kimberley and Pilbara coastline. Now, if you live along the Kimberley or Pilbara coastline, you're not in panic mode right now. You don't need to make preparations yet, but this serves as an important reminder that we are now in the back half of tropical cyclone season. Significant storms from this time of year are likely across the Kimberley and Pilbara. You need to have your tropical cyclone plans ready to go at a moment's notice. Many of you remember Cyclone Tracy, Christmas Eve, 1974, winds up to 217 kilometres per hour. Darwin was destroyed, Category 5 system that caught people unprepared. That is why we talk about these systems early, even when they readjust possibilities. Not to create panic, but to ensure you re-ready if conditions change quickly. Right now, monitor the forecast daily. Check back in regularly to stay on top of the latest. No need to cancel plans. This isn't a locked in, and it could occur anywhere between Karatha up towards Kununurra or Wyndham. The possibilities are wide open right now, or it may not occur at all. But your cyclone plan should be in place regardless. Know your evacuation routes, know where your nearest cyclone shelter is. Have your emergency kit ready with water, non-perishable food, first aid supplies, battery-powered radio, torch, spare batteries. Have important documents in waterproof containers. Looking at the tropical storm strike possibilities for the week of the 19th to the 26th of January, the data is showing a pretty solid chance of a tropical cyclone developing offshore from Western Australia. The probability is high in that region. There is also a reasonable chance associated with New Caledonia and Vanuatu, which we already discussed. The middle ground around the Gulf of Carpentaria shows lower probability for a full-blown tropical cyclone, but there is a surge there indicating the monsoon trough may develop a monsoonal low earlier than usual. That's why we're on notice for potentially heavy rainfall early next week across far North Queensland. The tropical low potential map, which looks at systems that could bring heavy rainfall regardless of wind speeds, shows very high chances near New Caledonia and Vanuatu. That makes sense because tropical low 14U has already developed there. Up in the Kimberley area, chances are also pretty high because some kind of tropical low or cyclone trying to spin up offshore is essentially locked in. Whether it's remnants of Koji or a completely different system designated as tropical low 16U, something will develop there. You can also see elevated chances in the Gulf of Carpentaria and Coral Sea. The Coral Sea shows slightly higher probability, probably because it's a more favourable environment with less land interaction. That surge in chances in the Gulf of Carpentaria is worth watching. Depending on where the system develops, we'll see different rainfall impacts across far North Queensland. So to summarise the situation clearly, immediate threat, heavy rainfall and flash flooding tonight across central Queensland, particularly southwest of Townsville down to Longreach. 200 to 250 millimetres possible in isolated locations. Flash flooding a real concern. This weekend, very wet conditions, top end Northern Territory, particularly Darwin area, remnants of Koji or new tropical low 16U expected to bring heavy rainfall. Early next week, monsoonal low development in Coral Sea or Gulf of Carpentaria. Location uncertain, but tropical low formation likely around 22nd to 24th January. Heavy rainfall, far North Queensland probable. Late next week into Australia Day weekend, potential tropical cyclone development Indian Ocean off Kimberley and Pilbara coast. Conditions very favourable for development, not locked in, but chances solid enough to warrant close monitoring. For South Australia and southern states, you are still waiting for decent rain. The dams are getting low, paddocks are dry. Unfortunately, this tropical activity up north doesn't help you. You need a different weather pattern, a cold front pushing through from the Southern Ocean that can tap into some moisture. That's not on the cards for this weekend, but we'll keep watching for opportunities as we move through the next week. Brisbane's been particularly dry this summer, which a few of you have noticed. You want decent rain, not necessarily severe storms. The problem is the moisture has been locked up further north with the monsoon. When you do get rainfall, it tends to come with the severe storm risk because of the instability. That is just the nature of summer rainfall in southeast Queensland. Right across Queensland from Brisbane north, conditions have been hot and humid all week. That warm, moist air mass is what's fueling these thunderstorms. As we move through the next week, that pattern continues. You are not going to get a break from the humidity until we see a change in the broader circulation pattern, which isn't likely until late January at the earliest. For those in central Queensland dealing with the flooding, I know this is frustrating. You've already had significant rainfall, roads are cut, some properties are isolated. More heavy rain tonight just makes things worse. Focus on safety. Don't take risks trying to cross flooded roads. Stay informed through the Bureau of Meteorology warnings and your local emergency services. If you are in areas expecting severe thunderstorms tonight, bring in any loose outdoor items. Secure anything that could become a projectile in strong winds. If you've got vulnerable windows, close curtains or blinds to minimise flying glass risk. If a window breaks, charge your mobile phones. Have a torch handy. If storms are severe enough to produce large hail, get your vehicles under cover if possible. The next week to 10 days is going to be active across northern Australia. Multiple systems developing, heavy rainfall likely in various locations, and a genuine cyclone threat developing for Western Australia. This is peak wet season. This is what January and February typically bring to Northern Australia. But that doesn't mean you can be complacent. Each system needs to be monitored and prepared for appropriately. Check the Bureau of Meteorology regularly for the latest warnings and forecasts. They'll be updating frequently as these systems develop. If you are in affected areas, stay informed, have a plan, and look after your mates, especially those in remote areas who might not have easy access to information. This is a complex weather situation with multiple moving parts. We'll continue monitoring closely and providing updates as conditions develop, but the key message is clear. Northern Australia is entering an active period. Be prepared, stay informed, and take warning seriously.